Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome, dear listeners. We're back at Loading Architects Learning. So this is a podcast where we delve into the world of architecture and design, navigating career paths in the era of AI. So this is Elena, a bachelor
Hi.
student in China. Um, and I'm Adeline. I'm an architect working in Hong Kong with a startup and also a day job. So,
What
before
is
we go,
our theme today?
exactly. So, um, our theme today is supply and demand.
Okay, so
Any
is
first
that
thoughts?
supply and demand of architecture career, the supply and demand of the industry?
Um, I that's a very good question to start off. How much demand is there for things to be built, and how much demand is there for the labor in this industry? Am I right? Perhaps we can talk about these two.
Yeah, what other kind of supply and demand are you are thinking of in mind?
Um, if we go further, if we zoom in even further, perhaps we can talk about the supply and demand in certain skill sets or people who are trained for certain things. Very quick example is what is the supply and demand for model makers in versus 50 years ago, let's say. Yep. I think it's a good question that you asked, like what kind of supply and demand are we talking about? Perhaps we can start from the biggest scale,
Mhm.
which is what is the supply and demand of the industry, um, per se? How much is being built globally? Um, that's pretty scale. What do you think?
I actually have no clue of the industry because I've been here for almost, but I don't have really experiencing those kind of ups and downs in the industry before. So I'm wondering what kind of, um, as an architect, do you actually feel the market it has the increasing and decreasing of the demand and supply side?
Hmm. Uh, because of where we are, because of me being in Hong Kong, Hong Kong is very developed, meaning not a lot of land still needs to be developed. Although just today we were talking about the Northern Metropolis and a lot of discussions about that. Um, but Hong Kong or even China compared to, let's say, countries like Vietnam,
Mhm.
um, India, a lot of places in Africa, I'd say we have we are reaching the point where we are quite well developed now, and other countries are developing, meaning they are now building a lot more than we are. But it's a
Mhm.
general statement, and I'm sure I'm going to need some statistics to back me up. Um, so, in fact, I've just asked Perplexity, which is a very powerful large language model for those who don't know. Um, I've just asked Perplexity, what is the supply and demand of buildings to be built globally? So it is telling me that the global construction output is anticipated to grow by 2% in 2024, following recovery from the impacts of the pandemic and economic fluctuations. So this growth is expected to be driven primarily by infrastructure projects. Actually, I'm not surprised, with civil engineering output projected to rise by 4.4% due to government investments aimed at boosting economic productivity. So this is a global view. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if we look into the supply and demand in a different perspective, perhaps there's supply and demand in public projects, public sector projects versus private sector projects.
Yeah, but talking about like how the industry is divided into like different regions. For example, in Hong Kong, we don't see as many of the local projects, but are we expecting more of the global projects? So, for example, for Hong Kong architects to do some projects in Vietnam or Africa, those kind of country that is highly growing right now.
I think that's such a good question. I believe certain institutions are gearing up for that. Can't speak for anyone, but I think just from my point of view, from my network, I believe people are indeed hoping to do that. Um, there's another question, right? There are different kinds of architects. You have your design architect, and then you have your local architects, who then ensures the building design is coherent with the local regulations. So local architects would always have that. I believe they're always required. There's always demand for local architects to take care of that stage, like stage 4, stage 5 of the design and construction. But for design architects, what is the edge of Hong Kong architects over, let's say, the big names in Europe or the big names in Scandinavian countries? And why should developing countries look for architects specifically in Hong Kong? What is the edge of a specific individual or a specific company? So I don't know the answer to that, but what are some of your thoughts?
I actually, I actually don't know because like I hear the Hong Kong architects, the industry is still growing somehow, or compared to some of the other countries, it is on a stable, um, with a stable market size, or at least like the local architects, they still have some projects to do. And with the question of why the other countries should choose the Hong Kong architects, that is such a huge question. And I feel like it's related to the skill sets, it's related to the price, the budget, and also the quality of our design.
Sure.
I have no
Yeah.
clue to that.
It's also about the fees. It's also about the fees. Like if the client who owns a piece of land in one of those countries that are developing, and this client is a public client, meaning they're a government entity or some kind of infrastructure institution, then they would wonder, okay, so if they go for a star architect, they are going for a certain style. If you go for a style, how you're expecting certain things. If you go for fosters, you're expecting certain things, right? So that would be their choice. But if they want to build something infrastructural, which is what the statistics were just explained to us, that there would be more infrastructural projects, do they really need that kind of landmark looking concept? That is my question. And would they prefer to put their fees, their funds, to invest into other things rather than the design of it? That's
Yeah,
also
I think
something I
regarding
wonder.
the infrastructure projects, it's more about the engineering part of architecture, the practicality of structure, and how efficient the construction workers can build it, rather than
Yeah,
the unique design.
yeah. I think that is something that resonate with me personally. You know, people, or maybe I should say, I ask myself this, although I discussed in length with people at length with people, do I still want to design and do I still want to become a design architect? Because of course you go to school thinking you become one.
Mhm.
Um, I'd like to. I love design, but is there demand for it? There might have been demand for it 50 years ago, 40 years ago, or more demand for it when. So I've just went to Ian Pay's exhibition 3 times actually at Plus because it's a fantastic one for those who are listening and who have haven't been there yet, it's highly recommended. And he said something in one of the newspaper clippings that I saw hung on the wall as an exhibit, is that he feels lucky that he was there at an age where there was growth and opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I think every era is an age of growth and opportunities, except they might be different. So I think this era, the era that me and you are in right now, is an era of growth for AI and not necessarily physical built projects. Or they might be, there might be demand for physical built projects, but they would be infrastructural and not something that is like the Louvre, for example. There would be less of that, I would dare say. And this actually comes to the second statistic that I'm looking at right now. Technological advancements actually have a big play in the supply and demand. For example, the adoption of BIM, like BIM, building information modeling, things like Revit is an example, and modular construction methods like MIC, is reshaping supply capabilities. These innovations enhance efficiency and reduce waste, allowing for a more streamlined construction process. And very interestingly, the market is projected to reach 162.4 billion by 2030. So it reflects a growing preference for these methods due to their cost effectiveness and speed. Now, interesting thing, but not surprising, is that there is a huge emphasis on cost efficiency and speed. So, which means that perhaps a larger percentage of projects to be built would be aiming for cost efficiency and speed. Now, I would like to ask a question in our architecture education, how much of the studio is aimed at cost efficiency and speed? How much of it is aimed at creating a fantastical geometrical, lovely shape design? That would be my question.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall all the studio briefs, and I feel like in our studio, it will be somehow related to the cost efficiency or the speed of construction when the brief is tightly weaved with structure, or it's like prefabrication, those kind of like timber structure, the modular design thing. If the brief is related or the brief is based on those kind of things, then it is related to the speed and the efficiency of construction. But otherwise, we are trying to seek out the concepts of how the community is built based on a very fantastic space design, this design of the space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the community and the social part is definitely very relevant and essential.
Mm-hmm.
I think, at least in my experience, in my education, or in the studio projects I've done when I was a student, I've never worked with an engineering student before, let's just put it that way. Or I've never talked to a real estate developer during my studies to better understand what are the client pain points. This is something that now looking back, I feel I wish there was. And for a project to be cost efficient and speedy, this requires a lot of work with the QS, with the quantitative surveyors, and with the logistics, with the procurement team, and suppliers, and structural engineers. All of those are bigger factors. Or I should say, if you want to design something that is super irregular, then yes, the design is affecting the price. Otherwise, the cost of the building comes down a lot to all the factors that I just mentioned, like the structure, how much loading does the building have, means how much piling you're putting on site. What is the dead load? What is the life load? How do you reduce the load? Reducing the load means a cheaper building, and a cheaper building means you might have some more money in the budget to put into some fancy facade fins, for example. So that's the kind of real life dilemma or discussion that goes on in a building project, which I doubt is like flushed out in a typical studio project, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, what you said, like you're working with the engineers and surveyor students, not students, the industry professions. I recall that in our department, in our faculty, we have the surveying students, but I've never encountered any projects to working on a project with them, and I don't even know what the surveying students they are learning and how it is relevant to us architectural students. I feel like I really need to have some insights to talking with different professions, even if it's within the architectural faculty.
Yeah, they're hugely important, and a lot of times they become the clients of the architects. Funnily enough, I remember it was more difficult to get into architecture than into surveying as a like for the public exam entry points I'm referring to. But funnily enough, they graduate to become the clients of the architects.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah,
we're serving for them, like using our knowledge to design a space, and the demand of our work is depends on how the real estate developers and how the surveying their demand is. It's like we don't feel the project on our own.
no, absolutely. And the QS is going to tell the client how much cost savings they should put on the design and whether or not they should chop some areas of the design away and not build certain designs. And they would be the people to find out for that. So yeah.
Another
I
thing
guess
I'm wondering,
sorry, go ahead.
another thing I'm wondering is, because you mentioned we have different professions of architects, the consulting architects, the architects on the construction side, or what kind of demand and supply are we having in the market? What kind of professions is the most demanded? And how can architectural students looking into different kind of architect professions to prepare for the career?
Well, there's always going to be demand for design architects. I think from what I personally see is there's more demand for project managers, people who manage a project and people who have years of experience as well in specific projects like hospital designs, healthcare designs, for example. So niches. And there's also demand for, well, I'd like to say, perhaps not in Hong Kong just yet, but there's demand for computational designer slash architect, like architects who can begin to code. And I think that demand is rising. Yeah, I think I can think of these two at this moment. I think a lot of the clients are now having their own in-house project managers, and they are architects. As for how students can prepare themselves for that demand, first of all, I need to caveat to say, once the students become qualified and let's say they've done 5 years of work out, like after they graduate, I think the demand might change, it might shift. So there's danger in preparing for that, for the same demand now for 5 or 10 years later, because that demand can totally change. Like 10 years ago, people are not thinking about AI the way we're thinking about it now. So I think the demand would be different. Then maybe your next question might be, okay, how can we prepare for the demand that might be, whatever that might be 5 years later? Then I'd say definitely the skill to be adaptive. That might sound broad. Then I'd say maybe coding literacy. Start with that.
Well,
Coding literacy and entrepreneurship, probably these two, as well as everything an architect should know.
yeah, or otherwise just be enthusiastic about the things you're interested in and nurturing your skills towards that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And do you want to talk about the supply and demand on certain skills? Um,
Sure. What are some of your immediate thoughts?
I'm thinking, because we have talked about a lot of skill sets on the previous episodes, and we're always mentioning this kind of AI and technology stuff that is
Yep.
increasing in the demand. But the increasing in demand, is it only because the technology is very popular in recent years, or is it actually a real trend? Like, is it only because it is very popular in these 2 years and somehow it will disappear, or
Mhm.
is it actually the trend for individual students to learn towards the career?
Well, quoting Kai-Fu Lee, who was the CEO of Google China, he said AI is the new electricity. Or I think he might have said AI is going to change the world more than electricity did. Um, so with that statement, I believe that's probably not a fad, it's not a trend. Um, and asking AI what it thinks of the supply and demand of architectural skills in this world of AI and economy, let's say. So it's telling me now that despite the growing demand for tech-savvy architects, the overall supply of qualified professionals is constrained by labor shortages in the broader construction industry. High turnover rates and an aging workforce exacerbate, sorry, this issue, making it challenging to meet the rising demand for architectural services fueled by urbanization and population growth. So perhaps on a global level, there are labor shortages, but it doesn't say, or perhaps I should ask more, what kind of labor shortage. Um, and I have a feeling that perhaps the different kinds of skills, like for example, there's a growing need for sustainable design, urbanization, and infrastructural developments, AI-driven design innovations. I think those are in demand. Um, yeah, so architects who can leverage AI tools to optimize design, streamline workflows, improve client engagement are increasingly sought after. So I'm very glad to hear that because that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. It's just describing my company right there. For instance, AI can automate routine tasks like documentation and compliance checks, allowing architects to focus on more complex design challenges. Yeah, I think, you know what, I have something to share that is at first when I set up my company and I thought, okay, I'm gonna use AI to design. Turns out that demand isn't that high. I think people might be a bit skeptical about it or they need some time to adjust it, but clients have been really enthusiastic about compliance checking, using AI for checking regulations and documentations, automating like email sorting. It's not even design related, but they believe that that actually has the most value at the moment, which surprised me. Um, and I didn't think that would be the demand, but that is because it saves them the most amount of time. And algorithms, which allow them to see many different types of feasibility designs in a short amount of time, is also highly valuable. So they actually prefer to use AI in those instances at this moment. And they still would like to do the concept design slower than I thought they would like. And it kind of makes sense because actually a lot of concept designs are from the clients themselves, or let's say concept designs are done by architects still need to be approved by the clients themselves. And that kind of back and forth process, AI can help with that iterations for sure. but that still, from the client's perspective, does not help them cut costs. It helps the architect cut time and costs, but not the client. Like clients as in developers or anyway, whoever is paying for the design or managing the design. So that is, and
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
marketing.
Oh, I was just saying that's an interesting finding, that's all.
Yeah, I was wondering when you are presenting the clients with some kind of AI generated design, do you say that it is AI generated, or
For sure.
is it you actually say that? I thought that
Yeah.
the process behind is more about how the AI stuff gives you some innovations, like some ideas, some inspirations of how to continue proceeding with the iteration and its design, and then the final outcome will still be more architect driven. But you actually do give them like the design of what AI did.
Well, it's a bit like this, and perhaps it's not a parallel, but for example, if you show a client an Enscape rendering, you will tell them, yeah, it's here's the design, it's made from Enscape. That for me is now I feel very similar to here's the design, it's I use AI on it. For me, AI is just helping me to get what I want. It is still, when I say it's AI generated, I don't mean like AI decided the look of the design should look like that. I've decided it and I use AI to present it. So AI is not controlling the scene. I think the person behind the AI is, and I've never lost sight of that. So for me, when I present it to a client, I'm currently not doing any design works, at least not this month. But I've been designing products, but not designs per se. But when I did in the past, and they're AI driven, AI generated, I always tell them it's AI generated, and here's my prompt. If you want, we can adjust the prompt and we can try to generate it together. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's an interactive, engaging tool to use together. And for those who are able to use it, it's extremely liberating. Extremely liberating. Yeah, it's like a Pinterest on steroids for some. Like, I think there are also different kinds of AI tools as well. Like some are very controllable, especially when you use a LAR model. You can really fine tune the output. And now CompuUI can do really nice things like adjust the lighting with just when you move the cursor, the lighting of your rendering just changes from the left to the right. Or it upscales your image from a blurry screenshot to something that you can use as a final output. They're tools.
Yeah, they're tools, but when you said like clients don't like to having the AI that much, is it because they do not trust the AI, or is it because like the AI generated stuff, it might have some conflicts with the reality, the construction, or the cost?
Are you referring to when I said some clients are reluctant to use AI?
Yeah.
That is um I think some clients are reluctant to use AI not because of the design at all, and not because of what you might think. They're afraid of losing their human force. They're afraid of it's all human. They're a bit afraid of losing touch or losing integrity, basically of their brand, and they are also afraid of the changes that come with this technology, how it would affect their structure in terms of the organization chart in the company itself. Like imagine in a pot, perhaps the client is used to having, some project managers to look after a team, and the external team would be, a director with an associate architect and an architect and some assistant architects, etc. And when that changes, they need some time to, I feel, right, personally, from the experiences that I've had, they need some time to understand, oh, wow, you can just suddenly do that. And so I just need one person and one AI and not the whole team. Gosh, now I don't know how the admin or the HR department is going to react to that. Or, you know, it's more of an HR thing.
Okay, yeah.
And thing, if that makes
That
sense.
makes more sense. Yeah.
It's never been a design. Yeah, it's always been people.
It's about like
Yeah.
the AI is replacing the human labor force and making some people unemployed. So it's
Yeah.
kind of we are
Yeah.
experiencing the structural change in the employment market due to the technology change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Spot on. So I think actually that comes also to market competition, because when firms adopt AI technologies to enhance their efficiency, they reduce the costs, and there's actually a competitive advantage for those who can integrate the tools into their practices. So that means there's a dual demand. So not just traditional architectural skills, but also the expertise and technology management and innovative strategy. So I think there's demand for those skills, the dual demand, I would say.
The dual demand for competition and
To be
the structure, within the company.
Yeah.
And apart from AI, I'm wondering how important is the environment, the sustainability playing in architects industry?
This is quite interesting. One of the products that I'm working on right now is ESG related. That's all I can say. And we're focusing primarily in Africa at the moment. When you're back, I'll tell you more about it if you're interested. So yes, it's hugely important. And if you think about this in currently, and it will be more and more in the future, this sustainability or metrics of sustainability, metrics of energy usage is highly, highly important. They are the KPIs for many certain things. And this normally people don't care, but they do care when this affects their how much the investors want to invest in them. This affects the demand.
They care if the regulation includes sustainability. It has some kind of the external forces to force them to care. Then the society, it has a higher demand for those.
Yeah. Oh, it's always the case. I think when you talk about sustainability, actually, what do you think about when we mention sustainability, when we raise up the topic of sustainability? What pops up to your mind? What are the associative terms?
Okay, the associates terms, I would say the renewable energy, concrete. Concrete is a much debated material in architecture.
Sure.
And they are, I think a lot of architects, they are experimenting different materials that is sustainable, the renewable materials, and energy sufficiency or energy efficiency of the construction, something like that.
Yeah, all those things. Definitely. I also think of all those things. For me, the first word that I think of when we mention sustainability is data.
How is that data?
It's all data. To find out whether or not your design scheme is sustainable, or whether or not it will be will it generate more or less carbon footprint? It all comes down to measurement. If you don't measure it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If there's no measurement of it, it doesn't exist. When you talk about energy, energy needs to be measured. Measurement is data. And AI can help with that for sure with predictive models, right? And I think this comes back to a very nice circle in the dual demand for skill sets in architects. The traditional architectural skill set, and then also the innovative strategies. And can you manage data? Do they know the skill set? Do they have the skill set to manage data? Or can they work with someone else who is a specialist data analysis, analyst, to work together on a project? I think I'm trying to be the latter because at this stage in my career, I can put time in upskilling myself in the technical side. I would love to, and it's in my plans. Personally, not afraid to share this, is that I think because we need to move fast, because the thing, I was thinking about this today as well. In the era of AI, it's fast. Everything needs to be speedy. We are at this, I think these couple of few years is where the blue market is going to become red in AI. And everyone needs to act fast if they want something done. If they want to test something, it's now. If they want to rate, it's now. And I can't wait for myself to start from zero with technical capabilities, but I can already leverage someone else's talents by working together with them, by collaborating. And I think I'm doing that in 4 to 5 different projects that I'm working on right now. I'm working with everyone except for architects at the moment. And of course, actually, I should say that I'm working with non-traditional. I'm working with some non-traditional architects who have taken up computer science skill sets, who are wildly talented, much talented than me. And I think it's the way to go. It's the way to go to get something done now and not having to wait 3 or 4 years to go through another computer science master's or an MBA. I would love to do those. It's on my list. But like I said, just can't wait. Just can't wait.
Yeah, the market is evolving so rapidly right now.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's trying to squeeze and have something out of the market within the AI technology, how it leverages people to it's very I would say fierce in the market, and then you're right, like it's a blue market perhaps now, but then it will become a red market really soon. So the large companies, if they have money, if they have technology, then their growth will be really rapid. Other than those kind of the startups who doesn't have enough resources, and it will be a very fierce competition between all of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think perhaps I'm not even thinking about being competitive. I think a big part of my motivation comes from curiosity. I'm just so curious to see what would happen if I do this and that, and if I try this and that, with this new thing that just came along, which is AI, with the diffusion models and large language models, and how would they look like if I put together that technological solution with some client's pain points. And this actually comes to our topic, supply and demand, because there is demand for sure for solutions to optimize design solution. There's demand for automation as well in different stages of the design and in the design management. There are lots and lots of demand, but can they find the supply? That is the thing. Can they find it? What does that mean? Is that I feel I can see that the linkage is a lot of times not there. Like the clients are not able to reach the solutions for
I mean, the solution
one
for
reason or another.
optimization or
Yeah, exactly. Either because the products are not out there yet, or the products have not been marketed in a certain way where the clients would trust it, or or the clients were not able to find a certain product or a certain strategist or a certain person who can tell them what they need. And then I realized actually it's very similar for all types of technology. It's about the adoption. I think Apple is wildly successful because of its adoption, of its capability to be adopted. Like it's so easy to use because of the user interface, user experience. It's so easy to use it and everyone starts to use it. Um, and I guess my point is there is value in bridging the supply and the demand together. And I'm personally interested in looking into that. It is the adoption, and I would like to call it the mediation and the translation. And to say a little bit more about it is that there is a knowledge gap between me and the very technical, talented people who are sometimes a little nerdy. And then there's a knowledge gap between me and the client. So I'm very happy to bridge the gap and be the linkage. And at first I was a bit unsure about it, but the more I look into this, the more I think it is there is demand for this bridge.
Yeah, with your bridging the communication between those two parties, the client and the very technical engineers or programmers, their communication will have like their knowledge level will be aligned with your health.
That is the
Yeah.
What about yourself? I speak too much about me, perhaps. What are your thoughts on you're the future?
I'm still navigating in different subjects. I'm still navigating in what the AI or machine learning can do for architects. I'm taking courses that are very interesting. We are researching how the machine learning can be applied into architectural design, and I'm personally trying to use a lot of the AI tools to help me daily in terms of my concept or help me to construct some of the research, like help me to find resources. And it is actually very helpful for me just to Google searching, because sometimes the AI can give me 20 resources at one time, and because of the the prompt I put in, it will be a bit more precise than what I type into the Google, because the Google you will have to try out different the search keys, and I think it is really helpful in my sense to help me to leverage some of the efficiency, but at the same time I'm keeping aware of the capability of AI right now. We have to be aware to be critical on its outputs, and I think I'm still trying to adapting to it, because previously, like, I worked basically mostly on the Google and Google Scholar and those kind of the research papers, and now I have to still adapting to learn how to balance the AI technology and the previous workflow that I did have.
Yeah, that I understand what you mean. And I guess your first point about still navigating, I think everyone is still navigating as well. I think no one is very sure exactly where we're going to be with this advancement. And I guess your second point about adapting into the new mode of working, the methodologies of implementing AI. Can you imagine someone who's born today, how they would see the world differently to us? Well, I'm in a different generation as you, but they would be the generation where AI has always been around, like ChatGPT was there before them. I don't know about you, but I've always known Google. Like I've always known the existence of Google since I had conscience. But I was told that some people who were a lot younger would think if I tell them that someone else was born before Google, they would think wow, that's crazy, right? And they would think that person's ancient. And for the kid who's born today, they're going to think, wow, it's crazy. You were born before ChatGPT. You were born before AI, like that kind of AI. That's crazy. And they would just have a completely different idea of methodology, of how to write a paper, for example.
Yeah.
Like if they ever see how I used to write a paper by hand in high school, I'd be like, well, actually, in high school I was already typing. But I was still doing a lot of things with, just by hand on paper. And to this day, I'm still thinking by sketching and by writing down words. But perhaps for them, their way of approaching, an idea or doing things would be completely dependent on AI, either that or they're completely natural with the methodologies that have AI fully implemented. Can you believe that? I mean, yeah.
I can't believe that because before when I was talking to my mom about how they write paper on the thesis paper before the graduation of uni, and she said she has to write a draft out because they didn't have any computer, so they have to write a draft out, and then if they have to do some kind of corrections, they had to do it by hand and then cross some words out and add out more. And after that, they have to write a formal one without any mistakes. And if they make some mistake, they have to redo the page. So that was something I cannot imagine. So there's already a gap between me and my parents. And then I feel like in the future, of course, the kids will be really familiar with the AI technology, and how they search for things will be different from what we do right now. I think what is important is to be aware of the level of capability of AI has today, and trying to be critical, not to believe everything what AI gives out. At least in this stage, perhaps in the future, AI will be super powerful and super accurate in everything. But I feel like the next generation, they will have a different approach to searching and approach to writing a paper, per se. So it's just perhaps the educators need to raise their awareness of how the tool is used. But other than that, I don't have any objection to using the technology. It's just how we use it is essential.
Yeah, I think when we talk about generations, it's also, I think, parallel to think about generations of architects. Like I mentioned, I am Pei, and then he was another separate generation of architects, I think. And there is our generation, and then the next AI generation. So how would the AI generation architect work? And I think it would be completely different to how we work, completely different to how Pei worked. Even I was watching one of the his video clips. I think it was from a snippet of a documentary, and he was explaining how the difference between how he designed back in school in MIT, actually Harvard, he went from MIT to Harvard, um, to how he designed in his practice. And I think he said when he was in school, he was sketching a lot more on large pieces of paper, um, taking more time to go through a concept. And in practice, which is 10, 15, 20 years later after he graduated, he was sketching a lot quicker in like rough sketches in a sketchbook. So that was his difference in methodology. Just things became quicker because he had to react quicker, and also I guess he was then, in a practice and working in a team, and the turnover has to be quicker. Um, I would like to know how he would do it now with the technology. I think he might say that he would still need to sketch and then give the AI to digest, which I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case.
I think the debate of how architects work is actually beneficial, because when I think about it, when we have the studio, and if you have some, we call it old school methods. If some tutors are insisting on the very old school methods, some of the students will be discussing like what kind of benefits it has, what kind of like
right. Yeah.
They're taking a lot more time than
what's the point?
Doing it digitally. What's the point? That is the conflict between different working methods. And then I can imagine in the future, like those architectural students will say, "Oh, why are you using AutoCAD?" Like,
why are you using CAD, right? So what are some of the examples of something that's old school right now for you?
Right now, for me, something that is old school is if some tutor insisting on doing hand drawings. I mean, hand drawing, it has its own beauty. It has the kind of liveliness in it. But if some hand drawings can be replaced by digital ones, if the digital drawing is doing much more quicker, then what is the point of doing hand drawings? You have to choose between those.
Yeah, absolutely. And controversial thoughts is that I think pinning up physical pieces of paper is old school. I think so. I think you can print out one very important drawing and see and mark up. And I truly believe that is important. But then I think, why should presentations be static? Why should they just be, I don't know. Because in the real world, we seldom print things out unless it's for government submission. All kinds of presentations happen as a PPT or a video, Yeah.
I guess
so
through the review is somehow an exhibition as well. So you get out all those drawings for the other people to see if you're not around.
Yeah.
But like,
that's a fair point.
I think
fair point.
It probably should be more flexible in terms of the format of presentation. If you have something really cool digitally, then it should be more adopted.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
Well, I think today we really got a lot to discuss, and I feel like we can go on forever.
Yeah, but we need to stop some point.
We need to wrap up. So what are we talking about next week, Ben? Sorry, I keep saying next week. No, it's the next. What are we talking about next week? Next episode?
Okay, let me have a look. What are we talking about next week is about the control. What kind of control architects have, and what kind of control is needed.
Yeah, I like that. Well, can't wait for that discussion. in the meantime, I think we can wish our listeners a good weekend if they're listening to this at their weekend. And if you're listening, I think we want to thank you very much for listening in. I know our podcast is not sponsored or it hasn't gone viral, but I think the point of this podcast is also for us to speak our thoughts and encourage others to also think about these discussion points. Um, then this is just purely academic or purely like a communal
It's
discussion.
about
Am I
bringing
right?
out different thoughts. It's about
Mm,
bringing out different thoughts to put on the table to let people think and discuss. And it's also for us to learn about different ideas.
perfect. Yes,
Yeah. Really
brilliant closing.
can't wait to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.